Hey everyone, Cheryl here. Thank you for coming to my YouTube channel. Today I wanted to show you how I like to dress up my envelopes using very simple techniques that don't require fancy dyes, or I just use scrap paper that I have on hand. Everybody's got the 6x6 paper pads and a lot of mine go unused, and I can take one piece of paper from a 6x6 paper pad and dress up your envelope, and I wanted to show you how I do that. So to get started, I have a couple different styles of envelopes. I've got this little envelope addressing template, which I use, and I'll show you that later. But the other things that you are going to need to do this are just things that you have on hand. So you need some two-sided tape or some ATG tape, whatever tape gun or tape adhesive you prefer, and then 6x6 paper pads, and some envelopes, and that's about it. So I'm going to start using this one piece of paper, and I have it picked it out to match the light gray envelope. And I get my envelopes. This one is from the Paper Source, and they're really good quality envelopes. I love them. So the first thing I do is I lay down the 6x6 piece of paper, and I line it up on the left edge so that it, as if I were going to slide it inside the envelope, and I make a pencil mark where I want to cut it so that it will easily slide in the envelope. And here this is going to be the envelope liner. So I just make a little tick mark at the top, get out my paper cutter, and I'm going to chop it off right where my pencil line is. Then I'm going to slide it back into my envelope and make sure it fits good. I'm going to keep that scrap piece of paper, that little strip. I'm going to use that later. So it fits great. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to line it up to the top, the very top part of the triangle of the flap of the envelope. And I'm going to start making some pencil marks of where I want to cut. And I'm going to do 4 pencil marks. So one on each side of the top corner, and then another mark where the angle and the cut is going to end to make it fit inside as the envelope liner inside. Hope that makes sense. So I've got my paper cutter back out, and I'm just taking the 2 markings and I'm lining them up on the very edge of the paper cutter. So you're going to see me adjust it a little bit here. Yeah, so it's important that the 2 marks line up before you cut. So you do that, and then on the other side you do the same thing. You line up the 2 marks, the top mark and the bottom mark, to the very edge of the paper blade, and then you make your cut. And it's not scientific. I don't have a ruler out. I'm not measuring. I'm merely just making little tick marks based on, the template that I've used. So here I place it right back in over the envelope to see, and it fits. And I'm going to actually round those edges on the top here in a second, but I pop this back in, and you kind of can shimmy it around to center it up. The next thing you need to do is to make a score line where the fold will be. Oh, here I'm rounding the corners. I didn't like that flat edge. On the later card, I'll show you a different style that you can do. So yeah, now I'm moving on to scoring, and you want to just put a score line where the fold's going to be. So I line it back up again, and I just kind of eyeball it, and I make sure that, yep, that's where I want to, where the angle cut stops is where I want to score it. And so I just put this on my score buddy and make sure it's straight. Score it nice and straight, and then we're going to fold it and slide it in. And I don't know why this took me so long to figure out, but when I was making envelope liners before, I would put glue all over the entire piece of liner, which caused a problem because when you actually make it fold, it grabs the envelope and it buckles it, which is not good. So the way I get around that is I only glue the liner down to the flap of the envelope. So I'm only going to put glue right there in that triangle. And the reason I do that is when you open the envelope, the bottom part of the liner isn't attached to anything, so it glides easily. And so there's no buckling and crimpling when you open or close the envelope lid. So I'm just going to slide that back in, eyeball it, line it up. Fuss with it a little bit, make sure it's centered. And then I'm just going to close the lid down on top of it and make sure it's nice and stuck. Okay, so then I'm going to take the scrap piece that was left over and I'm going to adhere it to the front left side of my envelope. And this is just going to give it a little bit of character without a whole lot of work. So I just take my glue gun and put two-sided tape on the back of it. Make sure it's covered completely with tape. And then I trim off the edges. And then I'm going to grab my bone folder and just make sure it's really well stuck. And there you have a really simple one piece of paper, an envelope liner with a coordinating front. And then I'm going to show you, I did all of my Christmas cards this way, but I used washi tape instead of pattern paper. And then I just kind of changed the way I put the return address on my envelopes. And I did actually have a couple of errors in Christmas cards. I was worried that if a card had to get returned to me, because of the way I write my return address, I was worried that it wasn't going to get back to me, but it did. I had two actually successfully returned to me that I had wrong addresses for. But so I just write my address on a straight line across the side of the little paper strip right there, and I just think it looks cute. I like it a lot. And then you can either pen in your lines for the address like I have done there with pencil, or you can use just pencil and use it as a guide. And once you have your address written, I just come back with an eraser and I erase the pencil marks so that nobody can see. So that's that. That's the first one. And I'm going to show you two more, but I'm going to speed it up a little bit because I think you guys probably get the process by now. But this envelope is a square flap, and I actually have a die that cuts the envelope liners for the square flapped envelopes, but I never use it. Honestly, this just is much easier to me because I don't know. I just find this easier. I just make a mark, I cut it. I'm not measuring and, finding the center of anything. I'm just kind of eyeballing it, put it back up there on the envelope flap. And now I'm going to just use a pencil mark and just kind of sketch the line of where I want the cut to be, which you can always erase later if you've got some pencil marks that still show. Chop that off, line it up on the other side, chop that off, and that looks good to me. And so now what I'm going to do is take the bottom piece and cut a strip that can be used for the front of the envelope. Since the liner doesn't need to go all the way down to the bottom of the envelope, nobody's going to see it anyway, so you might as well use as much paper as you can. So I'm making a little mark where I want the score line to be for the fold, putting that into my score buddy, making the mark, doing a fold, add tape to the flap only, and then I stick that in, line it up, close the lid, open it up, and there you go. And I did leave enough room for that adhesive to be pulled off so that didn't get glued down by accident. So then I'm going to take one of the strips, and here's where I use my 1/2-inch double-sided tape because it covers it completely, and I'm going to glue that down onto the front left side and do the same thing I did with the first one, although I'm not going to write the address in there. I'll save that for later. But then I have one more strip that you can use to seal the back. And I did that a lot this year with all my Christmas cards too. So, and that just ties it all together real nice, and you could trim off the ends and everything's good to go. And it acts as a double seal for the envelope too, which is nice. So I thought I'd do a Valentine's Day one, since Valentine's Day is approaching, and I know a lot of you card makers out there are working feverishly on some Valentine's cards. So I thought I would show you one with a Valentine theme. And I do this one a little bit different. I just put a mark where I think the center of the V is of that triangle up there. And then I mark the right and left edge. And I just cut it a straight from the center. I line up the top mark with the side mark on the blade of the cutter, trim it, do the same thing on this side. And then I'm going to cut off a bottom piece to use for the front, which is about a 1/2 inch. Check it to make sure it fits. Mark where I want the fold to be. Put in a score line, fold it, grab it with my bone folder. You could have actually rounded that top V of the liner to match the envelope, and I think I just forgot to do that. But normally I would have. There. So there's your liner. And then you're going to see I made a goof. I accidentally put the front piece on the wrong side of the envelope, but it actually works out okay. You just put your return address where you normally would instead of down the side. So I'm going to discover here very soon that I had the envelope upside down when I put that on there. But it still turned out cute. I'm like, whoops. So now and then there's an extra strip you can use on the back. And then you would just put your return address where you normally would. So there's 3 examples of how you can kind of dress up an envelope. These would be super cute if you just had plain note cards. Oh, here I'm showing you. You can add some washi tape too. I didn't ever have washi tape until this year. It's like, I don't know what was wrong with me. I couldn't understand why people used washi tape, but now I'm addicted to it and I can't stop buying it. So here I just took a little bit of a really thin strip of black and white, which I thought set off this particular design nicely. Some of the washi tape, and here's the back piece too, so I would actually, when I'm ready to seal it, I would use the black strip of washi tape on the back too. So yeah, here's 3 examples of envelopes that can be jazzed up. You can use washi tape, you can use pattern paper and just glue it down. I did all my Christmas cards like that this year and they went through the mail just fine, no issues. And it's a really easy way to jazz up your envelopes for your handmade greeting cards. Okay, thanks for watching, and I hope I gave you some inspiration today. If you liked my video, please give me a thumbs up, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one. Bye, guys.